Ever had one of those moments where you're smiling on the outside, but inside, you're just trying to hold it all together? Like, everyone around you thinks your life is perfect, but deep down, something feels off? Yeah. That was Mariah Carey. The glamorous pop star with the big voice and even bigger hits. The one we all grew up listening to. The icon who made Christmas music cool again. On stage, she sparkled. But behind the scenes? She was struggling. Big time. Back in the early 90s, Mariah was just starting out. Young, super talented, and suddenly famous. And then, she married Tommy Mottola, the head of Sony Music. He was powerful. Older. And basically the gatekeeper to her career. To the world, it looked like a dream match. The music mogul and the rising star. But Mariah? She later said it felt like being in a golden cage. And not in a poetic way. In a very real, very lonely way. She even called the house they lived in, Sing Sing. That's the name of a prison. That tells you everything right there. She was just 23 when they got married. He was 20 years older. And he had all the control, over her career, her image, her freedom. Where she went. Who she saw. Even what she wore. Everything was tightly managed. And here's the thing, Mariah was still figuring herself out. She was barely out of her teens, just beginning to explore her voice and her identity. But she wasn't allowed to grow freely. She had to ask for permission for basic things. Imagine that for a second. Being in your 20s, wildly talented, but constantly watched, constantly told what to do. No privacy. No real say. Just pressure. That's not love. That's control. So what did she do? She found a way to survive. She didn't scream or fight back in public. She didn't start drama. Instead, she turned to something that had always been there for her, creativity. Sometimes, when life gets too heavy, when you're overwhelmed or stuck or just carrying emotions you can't put into words, your mind finds its own way to cope. It creates little escapes, little safe spaces. And for Mariah Carey, that's exactly what happened. She used her imagination as her escape. When the world around her felt cold, controlled, and confining, she created new worlds inside her mind. She imagined characters. Made up stories. She had imaginary friends, little pieces of comfort when reality felt too hard. These weren't just daydreams. They were survival. They were her way of saying, I can't change what's happening around me, but I can make a space where I still feel free. And the most powerful part? She didn't stop there. She poured all of it, the loneliness, the confusion, the frustration, into her music. Into lyrics that told stories. Into melodies that held emotions words couldn't quite capture. Into songs that connected with millions, even if no one knew at the time what they were really about. That's how she coped. That's how she turned anger into art. Pain into power. That's how she took all the feelings from being trapped in a relationship that felt more like a cage than a home, and gave them a voice. She didn't lash out. She didn't fall apart in public. She made something. Something real. Something beautiful. And honestly, that's one of the most amazing things about her. She once said, I had to find a way to survive. I used my imagination as my escape. And when you really listen to her music, especially songs like Butterfly, you can hear it. You can feel it. That ache. That longing. That hope. Butterfly wasn't just a song. It was a cry for freedom. A quiet rebellion wrapped in notes and harmonies. It was her trying to fly away, even while still being stuck in the cage. And that's why it hits so hard. That's why it connects. Because haven't we all felt that way at some point? Maybe not in a high-profile marriage or under the spotlight, but in our own ways? Feeling trapped. Feeling like you have to smile and perform while inside you're just trying to hold on. Maybe you've been in a relationship that didn't feel safe. Or a job that drained you. Or a life situation that looked fine from the outside, but deep down, you were screaming. And maybe, like Mariah, you found little ways to let it out. You picked up a pen and wrote something no one else saw. You painted something messy and beautiful. You danced alone in the dark just to feel something again. Maybe you sang into your pillow. Or created a playlist that made you cry, and then made you feel better. That's what we do. As humans. As feelers. As creators. We cope. We turn pain into art. Into action. Into something we can see or touch or feel, just so we know it's not swallowing us whole. And here's the fascinating thing, it's not just some artistic, poetic idea. Science actually backs this up. There's this concept called emotional alchemy. Sounds a bit mystical, right? But it's real. It just means transforming your feelings, especially the hard ones, into something else. Into something that exists outside of you. Because here's what happens when we don't, those feelings don't just disappear. They sit there. They get heavier. They take up space in your body. In your mind. They affect how you see the world, and yourself. But when you express them, even in small, imperfect ways, it's like you're setting them free. You're taking some of their power away. And in doing that, you start to feel a little more powerful again, too. Dr. Thema Bryant, a licensed psychologist and trauma expert, says something beautiful and true: when we can't speak our pain, we create it. That's what Mariah did. That's what many of us do, without even realizing it. She didn't have social media to vent. She didn't go on talk shows spilling her heartbreak. She went into the studio. She wrote. She sang. She crafted songs that millions would sing along to. Not knowing they were born from her private pain. And you know what's so comforting about that? You don't need to be a famous singer to do the same thing. You don't need a microphone or a spotlight. You just need an outlet. A way to express. Some people journal. Others paint. Some write poetry that no one reads. Some cook meals with so much love, it's like a letter on a plate. Some build playlists that tell stories. Some cry in the shower while humming a tune that's never been recorded. The form doesn't matter. The release does. Because that release? That's healing. Mariah found peace through creating. Through turning inward, then expressing outward. And by doing that, she didn't just survive, she discovered herself again. She reconnected with the parts of her that had been silenced. And that's what we can learn. If you're feeling overwhelmed, like the walls are closing in, or like you're carrying more than you can handle, you don't have to explode. And you definitely don't have to pretend everything's okay. You can channel it. You can use it. It starts small. A notebook. A melody. A moment in the kitchen where you just let yourself feel. Ask yourself, what's my way of letting this out? Not the curated version. Not the version that looks cool online. The real one. The messy one. The one that actually helps you breathe again. And here's something you really need to hear: don't judge what comes out. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be honest. Because healing? It doesn't always look like what we expect. It's not always candles and therapy and neat resolutions. Sometimes it's 3 a.m. voice memos. Or a canvas you throw paint at without thinking. Or dancing to the same song 15 times just because it makes you feel seen. That counts. That matters. Mariah's story is a reminder that creativity isn't just a hobby. Sometimes, it's a lifeline. A bridge between the pain we feel and the peace we want to find. And when you look at her now, glowing, empowered, funny, in control of her life, you realize, she didn't just get out of that marriage. She grew past it. She turned a painful chapter into fuel. Into fire. Into something bigger than herself. And that's not just strength. That's evolution. And if she can do that, maybe we can too. So let me ask you something, from one human to another, what's your thing? When life gets too much, what helps you cope? What's your little escape? Is it a walk outside? A favorite book? Sketching in the corner of a notebook? Cooking while your favorite playlist blasts? I'd love to hear it. Drop it in the comments. Not just for me, but for someone else who might be looking for a new way to feel a little lighter. Your coping mechanism could be the lifeline someone else never knew they needed. And hey, if Mariah's story hit home for you, if it helped you understand her on a deeper level, or even understand yourself a little more, go ahead and give this video a like. And if you want more content that's raw, honest, and heartful, hit that subscribe button. Stick around. There's so much more coming. So many more real stories to share. Actually, up next, we've got something really special about Janet Jackson, about how she stood by people in the music world even when it hurt her reputation. It's emotional. It's powerful. And it might just make you see loyalty, and Janet, in a whole new way. You're definitely going to want to see that one. But before you go, just think about this. Next time All I Want for Christmas Is You comes on, and it'll sound a little different now, won't it? Because now you know what was behind the glitter and the snowflakes. Behind the catchy chorus and the holiday cheer. You know there was a woman who had to fight quietly. Who had to escape inside her own head just to survive. And who turned all of that, all the heartbreak, all the pressure, all the fire, into music that became part of our lives. That's not just talent. That's transformation. That's the power of vulnerability. Of creativity. Of reclaiming your voice, even when it feels like everything around you is trying to silence it. And that is Mariah Carey. Thanks for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next video.